and most people don't know what they want either. If I ask them what they want, they don't know that. They hadn't considered it. But this goes a little bit deeper to, but even this, like even the whole conversation about self-love, people will say, well, you know, that's kind of selfish, and, you know, it's a lot of hyper focus on you. But, you know, if we take a look at, you know, even just at that pie, if we take a look at someone who's operating from a place of feeling of self-loathing and beating themselves up and feeling a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, produce something in the world, but it may not be something that's really contributing greatly to what we need in our society. Where someone who's operating from a place of self-care and self-respect and really and self-knowing and is in more of a position to contribute something. Because only when I'm now that I'm in a place of self-love and learning how to align and stay connected there, I have way more to contribute and way more to give, and I care a lot more about that. When I was in that place of disconnect and self-hatred and self-loathing, I didn't want anything to do with giving anything to anyone else. It's all about getting. It's at that point that that when people are in a lot of pain, they just want something to make the pain go away. So It's all about getting. That's more selfish. So it's really interesting how when we talk about self-love, people say, well, isn't that selfish? You know, it's putting a lot of, it's the exact opposite is true.
Right.
It also goes back to that whole definition of love, because we've been taught that when you love someone, right, it's out there somewhere, right? It's about something that you do, some way you behave, the words that you say. But there's I see like there's a huge gap there. So.
Yeah, there is a gap there. And, you know, when I'm really connected with that energy, like if we understand that love is actually moving through us and out into the world, then I'm no longer trying to get it from somebody. I actually have it to give. And I will communicate in ways that are probably more authentic. And so I can say something, I can do something, I can give something. But I'm not doing it with expectation of anything in return. I don't have an agenda when it's coming from source. But if I'm feeling disconnected, then now I'm actually looking to get it. I need for you to care about me. I need you to show me that you love me. I need you to respect me. I need you to approve of me, because I'm not approving of myself. And I'm not.
That becomes conditional love then. That's not it. That's not really love. That's a bunch of conditions. And
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what most people are calling love, right? Is the conditional. And if you really loved me, you would do blah, 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 blah. But, you know, when I'm operating from a place of self-love, I don't need you to love me or respect me or agree with me, because I do. Right. I already have that. I feel that from the inside, so I don't need it from you. But so if two people are in a place of real self-love and authentic connection, then, you know, the partnership, it just becomes, you know, how can we collaborate and create something greater that we can contribute? You know, there's something that between the two of them that they can create that would be greater than either of them could create on their own.
I think it has to start too with people recognizing that there is a problem going on that they're responsible for. Because, you know, we can't help but coming through the school systems. We can't help but the families we've come through. You know, some of the things that parents say, teachers say, and so forth, we take and we believe it's a truth. Yeah. And now we're this person that believes things that maybe aren't completely true about ourselves. Mm-hmm. Whose job is it then to straighten that out? But it's a conversation I don't think we have until we meet up with the pain in a way that causes us to go out and look for someone like you or an astrologer or somebody that, you know, a counselor that can really ask these questions. So what is it that we can be doing in our everyday conversations with people that can bring this to light without having to go to some major extreme to get to that information?
Right. Well, and I think you're pointing to something really kind of interesting too, Janet, is that, you know, it's nobody's fault, right? I mean, we've disconnected from our authentic self by, you know, our parents and our teachers and our culture and our communities have supported it. And so it's nobody's fault necessarily, but it's as adults, it's our responsibility now. to recognize that I'm in pain now, and I have disconnected from my authentic self, and what do I need to do? Like even asking the question, what do I need to do? How can I now align with my life purpose, my authentic self? Even asking that question begins the process of connecting. The things that will really help people, and we're seeing a lot of it now, is people are practicing yoga. That's a way of getting out of the busyness of our mind and our identification with our self-image and connecting with our being. So yoga is a great help. Meditation is a really great way of creating some separation from the busyness of our mind and our identification with that into connecting with my being. Connecting in nature, anything creative really helps to open things up. But also too, like I said, taking the time to sit down and question, like, what is truly important to me? What is most meaningful? And writing it down and beginning the process of creating a vision. And then each day asking, what do I need to do to move in this direction? And if people started just each day taking one step at a time, like what will happen is if you got really clear about what's most meaningful and important and you created the vision, and then you woke up tomorrow and you said, okay, well, what is it I need to do? I promise you, you will be guided to do things that you're not doing already.
Yeah, I have a funny story. This morning,
Yeah.
I was talking to my next door neighbor. She's 83 years old. She goes, oh, honey, what's your show about today? And I said, oh, it's about self-love. And she goes, are you for or against it? I said, of course I'm for it. And she goes, oh, okay, that's good. But I thought that was kind of funny, but maybe something generational there that maybe that it wasn't okay to love ourselves, that maybe that meant we weren't loving others first. And then I think about how that translates, from her generation to her kids to her grandkids, and that kind of thing. And I just don't think we've ever been said. It's never been said to me. I know for sure. You got to love yourself first.
Right. And I think too, right, it's a generational thing, because I think that generation was more, there was more socialization, and the family or the tribe was important, and there was more of a connection. And I think now the individuation process, we're kind of stepping away from groups or clans or family and really getting a sense of who we are. And but that generation, they didn't. I mean, I know even my mother, if I ever said to her, I'm focusing on self-love, she'd roll her eyes and say, that she would suggest I was being selfish.
Yeah, it's all about you, isn't it?
All of myself, and right. It's all about you, and so there is. It's interesting, because people say, well, what about narcissists who really love themselves? The truth about that is, the narcissist is actually as far away from self-love as you can possibly get. Like they are so disconnected from themselves that there's like a deep, and they're trying to figure out, like they're actually doing things to create, to try and create an image of self-love, but there's nothing authentic about any of it. So, and I think that's what happens. I think people are afraid if we start focusing on self-love, we'll become narcissistic. Mm-hmm. But you know what? The exact opposite is true. If we really don't come to a place of self-love, we move further and further and further away from our authentic self, which is the narcissist. Right? So there's nothing narcissistic about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. And I would think that the narcissist is missing something. There's a void there that they're filling up with this fake information of themselves,
right?
Making themselves feel better.
Right. They're completely disconnected from their authentic self through pain and trauma. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, not to make them bad or wrong. It's just they're in a lot of pain, and they've disconnected, and they're so far away from their authentic self that narcissists are really deeply insecure, and they've learned how to they've created a self-image that's really strong and charismatic, and they've learned a lot of things. They're smart generally, so they've created a really solid self-image that they've become very good at convincing other people that, and themselves, But
how about defining it or paint a picture of, for instance, someone who's in self-love versus someone who's narcissistic? Because we're using terms, and I really don't have images in my head for either one of those people.
Okay, sure. I'm going to give you an image. I'm going to create, I give you a complete profile of somebody who is deeply connected with their authentic self and is in a place of self-love. So someone who, they understand that goodness, truth, and beauty are seeking expression through us. Those who are available to receive it experience self-love. They feel alive and energized and spontaneous and excited about life. They're deeply connected to their authentic self, and they easily connect with others. They choose careers that inspire them. They're doing what they love and loving what they do. They're sharing their talents and gifts with the world. They're thriving, and they know that they make a difference. They're operating from a place of abundance. They trust that things will unfold as they're meant to. They experience and express a full range of emotions. They understand that vulnerability is power. They attract a life partner who loves and respects them as they love and respect themselves, because they give love freely. They present themselves as strong and confident and grounded and caring, humble human beings. They cope well with change and challenge. They're clear about their intentions. They're unwavering in their commitment to their vision and their goals. They face everything and avoid nothing. They communicate clearly, directly, and honestly. They have compassion and forgiveness for themselves and for others. They ask for and receive support when they need it. They feel comfortable in their own skin. They treat themselves with respect, and they command respect from others. They take calculated risks for the right reasons, regardless of what others think. They approve of themselves, and they don't need approval from others. They manage their time efficiently and effectively. They do whatever it takes to keep their body fit and healthy. They focus on the highest priorities in their life. They are empowered. They live life on purpose and with passion. They have a strong desire to contribute for the greater good. They're decisive, and every single choice they make is aligned with their deepest core values. They consistently push their edge and step outside of their comfort zone. They're naturally creative and innovative. They consistently grow and use more of their potential, and success naturally finds them. They let their heart guide them forward. They value their time, and they set boundaries. They take full responsibility for what happens in their life. They see the beauty in others. So that's kind of a profile of somebody who's really deeply connected with their authentic self.
Have you ever met one of those people outside of a Harlequin romance?
I know, that's the list. I was about to say that. So you will see.
Excuse me, except Roger, apparently. He's
Roger.
Here would be my actual observation.
Yeah.
To many of us, I can actually say honestly that I have experienced the bulk of that list, but not in a sustained way. Yeah. That's a huge relationship, right? It's about developing where even a knowing that that's possible, that I have been in those moments at times is, steps above. Has that been your experience with your clients too? Are we really aiming for that is that where we're heading and recognizing perfection at every step? Or are we really saying you're going to have to get there?
So it's not about being perfect. It's just kind of, I was creating a profile. I don't know anyone who's like this, by the way. And I just thought, I really sat down and thought about it. If we were really completely aligned with our deepest knowing, with our intuition, with our creative intelligence, and we were moving in that direction, what would it look like? So that's how I came up with, this list. And we do see people who are moving in this direction, who are more aligned with this, right? But the truth is that even when you are really aligned, like I was showing that picture of the pie, right? So the dark blue part would be someone who's more aligned with their deeper inner knowing. But it's not that we're one or the other. Like we always have our authentic self, and we always have our self-image. And often we oscillate between the two. Like there's some times where I feel really aligned with this. And there's other times where I am completely running, my programming and conditioning is running. And I've been triggered, my someone's, triggered me and I'm in reaction mode. So we oscillate back and forth. And so it's not a matter of getting rid of one, because you can't get rid of it. You can't get rid of it anyways. But it's like, which one is driving? Which one is leading in my life? Am I leading from my authentic self, or am I leading from my conditioned and programmed self?
Sure.
And that's right. We get to choose that. And it's not about being perfect. And it's not about, and ultimately, could we align with that entire list? I'm not sure. We'll see.
Well, I think I have one of those life paths where I think the idea of self-love has taken the most extreme face, in that I've had a lifelong struggle. It's over now, with anorexia and bulimia. Okay. So eating disorders, there's a lot of severe behavior that comes from different challenges we all might have. But I did find that the core of eating disorders in everyone I know and myself comes from a crisis point over self-love.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Really work it through on such a severe level. The one thing that I didn't hear you mention, or not in ways that I recognized, was that fundamentally you did mention that it has been powerful for me is I have to believe in a beneficent force. Yeah. There has to be a force beyond my own ability to bring about my own well-being that is working, co-creating with me. And therefore, whether it's the grace of God, the belief in something higher, the belief that goodness exists, it doesn't matter what it is, but it also is self-acceptance. Because at no time have I been able to reconcile to much of what you described, even going back and forth from the personality or the external self to the soul. It also taught me, though, that in the relationship of building that relationship and building a life where that was engaged, all steps had merit. This was not, and to some extent, all my family are teachers. And I thought, really, could we line up a bunch of 10-year-olds and say, what is it you want out of life? Well, we want to play. Well, no. Right. Let's talk to your inner knowing. What would your inner knowing like right now? Well, we'd like to play. There's a point at which no matter what we do, there is no school system, I think, that would necessarily, it takes time. It takes time and experience and exploration and error and mistake and unhappiness and joy, and all of those things presumably have to be in play, even if my conditioning is completely supportive and conducive to me having that relationship. So I think some of what's shifting for us now might more be how we're framing that exploration, rather than whether or not it exists. I don't know that there's a human being who's born and raised in such a way that their inner knowing never has them trying and, going through a series of experiments and recognizing both failure and successes as part of the necessary path. Therefore, acceptance that I can be in this grace and participating, even if I decide I've created something that isn't serving me or others. I may have created, something I believe is an ill. I have to be able to not only take responsibility or an ill for myself, right? That great pain of the real truth when you wake up from that illusionary state of all that conditioning and realize what you've been doing to yourself.
Yeah.
It's horribly painful to see what we've done to ourselves as a result of this, regardless of the responsibilities we have to others.
Yeah.
Acceptance has been a big key of saying, I love myself and accept.
Yeah.
If I'm facing, flaw, got a problem. I see.
Yeah. One of the other things that, I had a really difficult time trying to figure out what self-love meant. And the other thing I had a really tough time with was figuring out, like, people used to say to me, just let it go.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean? And so what I came to understand about that, and it's such an important thing to understand, is that, because I used to think it was just put it out of your head, right? And that was more like sweeping it under the rug, or, acting like it's not happening, or think positive. But what I came to understand is that it's taking a look at everything in our lives, and that it's complete self-acceptance. It's letting everything be just as it is. Mm-hmm. Like, if I can take a look at myself and say, this is not about being perfect. This is about saying, you know what, I have failed at you know, at certain things in my life, and I can recognize it. I can take a look at that just as a fact. I don't have to make it mean something about me. I don't have to make it mean I'm a bad person or I'm stupid or I'm not good enough. It's just, it's a fact. Yes, I failed. That's letting it go and letting it be the way it is. Yeah, I've made mistakes and I've hurt people. And, you know, that I can acknowledge that. I don't have to make it mean something like that I'm a disgrace or I'm a unworthy human being. It's the stories that we make up about all of that stuff that puts us in a place where we're not accepting ourselves. We are all experimenting and we are all being challenged and we're all in a system. And can I get to a place where I can let things go and just let things be as they are?